kop. Ik via dekker wil ze zien kleine paarden top. Geef mir geen zacht lid, die drop.
Hey everyone, welcome to Kill Me Now with Judy Gold. I am your host, Judy Gold, and this week, very excited, we have Mayan Lopez, who is on this great series called Lopez versus Lopez with her father, George Lopez, who I actually interviewed at the 92nd Street Y years ago when his, not that long ago, I sound like, years ago, when his book came out. I know him, I know Mayan's mother, who's a doll, and it's a really great, interesting interview. The only child of this huge star, and her mother's pretty awesome too. So I think you'll find it very enjoyable and interesting because God only knows. You think people who grow up in Hollywood or, with these successful parents are spoiled brats, and not all of them are. Anyway, what a week it's been. What a week. I did a reading of my new show based on my book, which is coming out in March. I'll give you more info on that when I'm allowed to. It went really well, and I'm excited about it. So that's that. I have gigs. Oh my God, this week. Let me just tell you about my gigs this week. So tomorrow night, which is the 14th of December, I'll be at the Chosen Comedy Festival in Miami, Florida. But I'm doing the Boca Black Box in Boca Raton, Florida on Thursday, the 15th of December. The 25th of December, which, as you know, is Christmas. I'm doing a very Judy Christmas. It's Christmas at Stand Up New York. And then in January, the 21st, I'm at the Sellersville Theater in Sellersville, Pennsylvania. And the 26th through the 8th of January, I'm at the Comedy Loft in Washington, D.C. Okay? And then we go into February. Do you really want to hear about my February? No. But February 4th, I will be at the Avenel Performing Arts Center in Avenel, New Jersey, which is right by where I grew up. Not happily. Anyway, so those are my upcoming dates. I just wanted to put them out there. Yeah, it's been some week. I've been writing a lot, and I have been getting really angry about the anti-Semitism and the racism and the people's will to the white supremacists who love when Jews and blacks fight, and we need to not fight. We are together. We're better together, and we support each other, and we love each other. And the world would be so boring without the Jews and the blacks. I hate to tell you. Okay? Also, I wanted to tell you something else, and of course I can't fucking remember it because I can't remember anything anymore. Like the words come in my head, and I'm like, I'm going to tell everyone blank. And then it just disappears, and I'm really, really, really getting sick of it. Like really, really getting sick of it. Anyway, today I am going to Washington, D.C. today, the day that my podcast comes out. And this is such a nice story. I was invited to the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act because my nephew works in the Department of the Interior, and he was invited to the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act bill, act, whatever. And instead of going with his wife, he said, I think it would be more meaningful for you to go. How nice is my nephew? Okay, so today, as you're listening to this, if you're listening to it on Tuesday when it comes out, I am at the White House. Okay? I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. Gearing up for the holidays and, getting depressed in January. So that should be a lot of fun. But anyway, this week is part one of my interview with Mayan Lopez. And I don't usually interview really young people because I feel like, the life experience isn't there. But what a life she's had already. She is such an old soul. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you sit back. I hope you relax And whatever you're doing, if you're on the treadmill, if you're on the elliptical, if you're on the stair climber, if you're doing weights, if you're just laying around, I hope you enjoy part 1 of my interview with Mayan Lopez. First of all, I want to begin this part 1. I haven't done this in a while, but I have a kill me now moment. At the end of the podcast, I'm going to ask you what pisses you off more than anything in the entire world, because the name of the podcast is Kill Me Now, because I get so fucking aggravated about every little thing. We're recording this at 1:00 in the afternoon. At 12, I don't know, like 20, I'm on the Peloton. Okay. I'm in the middle of a Broadway ride. Okay.
Okay.
Which I'm so, you know those musicals and how they,
oh, absolutely.
And I'm like, oh my God, yes, this is what I needed to hear, Dear Evan Hansen, and I needed to hear Rent, and yes, this is how I'm going to start my day.
Yeah, sometimes the only way to perform is through song, and they get it, it, they understand.
Right, and I'm like, yeah, and the fucking internet goes out.
No.
Right, like in the middle where the music was getting really good and I was going at and the fucking internet goes out. And I walk in the bedroom where the thing is, and there's no lights on it. And I'm like, I honestly, and of course I blame God. Like, I think there's this other thing going on that's a black cloud against me. Like, you know what, I'm bored, let's get Judy today, So that's what happened. And today I'm so excited. I don't usually interview young people because they have no life yet, but you have a very full life. And I know both of your parents. Mm-hmm. Your mother is like a bottle of joy. Isn't she?
Oh, she is. It's now every time she walks into a room, she'll just go, honey, what?
Yeah, she loves to sing.
You.
And it's supposed to be bundle of joy, but she's like a bottle because I don't. Yeah. But you have you're 26, you're the same age as my son, my older son, and your life really fascinating. It's funny. I was going back, I do a lot of research, and, I know your father, I interviewed him at the 92nd Street Y when his book came out. We had a really great time, and it was right when the bad shit was happening. And, we were all really mad at him and we're going to get to that later, but let's just preface that there's a really incredible story that happens. Wait, how old were you? Let me look. I have it all down in 2005. In 2005, a really incredible. And then in 2010. So I was doing research, and your parents, so your father's George Lopez, your mom's Anne Serrano, who actor, singer, producer, just all around bundle of joy, as I said, but I said bottle of joy.
Bottle of joy. Let's get on the record.
Yeah, because of my fucking internet. And your mother's parents were both doctors.
Yes.
The mom was an anesthesiologist, and the father was and they're from Hartford. Well, she was born in Hartford, right?
Yeah. So they were born in Hartford. They're both from Havana, Cuba. They'd known each other since they were 8 years old. And then my grandmother went into medical school. This is how smart my grandfather was. My grandfather wanted to be an engineer, but then she was one of the only two people in medical school, only two women, and he got jealous. And so he went to be a doctor.
No way.
Oh yeah. I'll just become a doctor.
See, the misogyny doesn't end. It doesn't end, yeah.
And so they were medical students. And then in 1959, that's when Castro came over Cuba. And my aunt was about 3 years old at the time. And she started singing communist songs, coming home and singing communist songs. And my grandparents looked at each other and were like, we have to get out of here. Right. They didn't know Castro was a communist,
right?
But they kind of caught on early. And so they wrote 300 handwritten letters to any hospital in the United States that would accept both of them. And the first one was a little Cook County hospital in Cook County, Connecticut, in Hartford. And so my grandparents got my aunt, her mother, like 2 suitcases with $200. They went to the Swiss embassy, and then they got their green card and were able to fly out. And my grandmother was an anesthesiologist, and my grandfather was an obstetrician, gynecologist, but then he went into aviational medicine and was the doctor for the astronauts during the Apollo missions.
No way.
Yeah, so he was Neil Armstrong's doctor. And
no fucking way.
Yeah, my mom went to Freedom Point Elementary and saw the rockets, and then he became the medical director of Eastern Airlines. That is an airline that doesn't exist anymore. So it's a pretty
I know. I remember Eastern Airlines.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so do you have pictures of your grandfather with Neil and all these astronauts?
I have a picture of them they were on a dude ranch in Montana. And
no way.
And there's a picture, and then we have a picture of we have an Apollo patch that they gave everyone at NASA. So I think it was Apollo 11. And they have a picture of the moon, one of the pictures from the moon from the 60s, and they have it signed to him. Yeah. It's really, really incredible.
That's so fucking cool. And then they moved to Ohio and then Florida.
And then Florida.
And then your grandfather died in a car accident in 87, right?
53.
Just fucking awful. Just so awful. And then it's interesting because then on your father's side, he's the son of a migrant worker who abandoned him, basically.
Yeah, when he was
2 months old. Is he related to Fidel Castro?
I could know. I was like, I wish, it's so funny with celebrities. Like, I've always wanted to do a 23andMe test.
Yeah.
But I think that with my dad's crazy side of the family, I think he'd have to go under a different name because he wouldn't want people to try
I was
to
doing
approach
research. Who was it that I read that was, because I was going in this deep hole of your family, and I was like, and someone, I don't know, I read someone was like, relate via marriage to Fidel Castro. It's so, just that story of the, migrant worker, educated, having to leave this horrible place and come to America. And, you just you can look at your grandparents, you can look at your parents and what they have given to society as a whole, and how much we love them. They're beloved. They've, and these motherfuckers, like, it must make you so angry.
It really does. Because also my grandfather on my mother's side, he actually cheated on my grandmother as well. And so there's kind of a generational.
I know. I'm telling you.
It's just, and he was in the car with his girlfriend at the time, my grandfather, when he passed away, and he didn't take his heart medication. He was supposed to have a heart surgery, but he didn't want to be away from his patients. And so he fell asleep at the wheel, and she was there. And my grandmother and him were talking about getting back together because, they'd left the country together. They'd known each other since they were children. And then, she gets a knock on the door that he's gone. And so
Did the girlfriend survive?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
And then she worked in the office. And, that's another thing with my mother, like how much sacrifice and, hard work.
It's like a mirror.
They're both of my parents. I've really, truly seen the value of hard work from behind the scenes. Cause, my mom always says it's show business, and not a lot of people understand the business side. And I've gotten a unique opportunity to see the business side of, my mom always tells me stories of when my dad was coming up and stand up. She was like, you are always going to wear a suit every day. When you go up, you're going to wear a suit. And then when the second you're done with your set, even if we just go home, order pizza, we're going to leave because we want people to see that you are going to go do something else. It was all about appearance.
She's so right.
Perception. And even there was I love this story. So my dad had, people always think that I came home with a silver spoon in my mouth.
Oh, I know.
And, it's with the hard work. I've always had to work hard to, always wanting to be the best comedian that I could be, but also to not turn out like everyone expects me to.
Right.
And so, my parents brought me home to a condo on Barham. And that's so wild that with the show Lopez versus Lopez, we had a billboard on Barham, and that's where my parents brought me home from the hospital. So it's already like a beautiful, cathartic
It's so
moment.
Interesting how it all weaves together. All right. So you went to, Campbell Hall School.
I did.
And wait, I have to say something. When I was at Rutgers, I lived in
really?
Campbell Hall.
I applied to Rutgers for.
You did?
Yeah.
And you didn't want to go?
I got in, but I didn't want to go because I went to Columbia
College in Chicago.
Yeah.
Because the second city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, Campbell Hall. And I just was talking about Campbell Hall last night because I met someone who went to Rutgers. I'm like, oh, I lived in Campbell Hall. And she's like, so did I. And then I doing research when I get home and I'm like, oh, she lived. All right. So shout out to Campbell Hall.
Campbell Hall.
You grew up on the set of the George Lopez show, but before that show even happened, you wanted to be an entertainer at 5. And you said, and I read that your mom would show you old movies as a young child. So when your father, I'm so interested in this because I was a comic on the road and I have kids. So when your father would leave, do you remember that? Do you remember him going away?
That's some of the only things from my childhood that I can remember.
You can't?
A lot of it's trauma is a very interesting thing because I've had a wonderful childhood, but then there are other things that happen that my brain just protects itself. And so, but I think remember, we all
do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember like when sometimes my dad used to take me to school every morning. That was kind of what he would do.
Yeah.
So what he would do sometimes is he would drop me off and he's like, okay, Mayan, I'm not going to see you for 3 weeks. Bye. And as I'm driving out and I'm like, what?
You didn't know before?
I understood. I didn't actually see him do stand-up for the first time until I was 21 years old. I didn't see him till I was 21.
That's really great.
So, people would come up to me and say, these jokes are funny. I'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
And,
but that sounds great that you didn't.
And I used to go on stage with him. There was one time that I went in San Antonio when I was like, and he was playing for like 40,000 people. And my mom took me out that day and I got a little lasso loop that if you just turned it, went in a circle. And I had a little cowgirl outfit. And my dad brought me out and all I remember is just a wall of sound and seeing people and flashing. And I just did my little like loop and I cursed and I left. So, there's great pictures of me when my dad used to go and perform at the Ice House and he would bring me up on stage or, when we go to Vegas and, my mom would take me out when he had dates in Vegas. So like, I remember like seeing him on stage, but I didn't understand what stand-up was.
I was, when they were 2.5 and 5 and 2.5 and 7.5, I was single at that point. And when I would go out to do sets, like I'd try to go in the neighborhood and sometimes I had to bring them. And Ben, that's my Jew bell, anything Jewish. So Ben, still can do this. You give him any word and he can say it backwards. And so one night he's standing in the bar and I was like, Ben, come up. And so they're all yelling words like television and, whatever. And then, it's the Upper West Side of New York, which is so Jewy and annoying, like these erudite, and all of a sudden someone yells out, Schadenfreude. And I'm like, you fucking the kid's 8 years old. And you're fucking yelling like I wanted to anyway. So that's my story of the one time I brought my kid on stage. But all right. So but
you understand, and and you understand, and, you get sad but you realize that that's why you're able to have the things that you have, and that's
right.
They're going.
But you weren't financially secure when you were first born. Like for your first few years. So you had these working parents.
Yeah, my mom was a casting director and my dad and producer, and she would produce a lot of, Bob Hope specials for ABC or, pop-up things like that. And there was times that my dad had to stay in the car because he was so embarrassed that they had to pay their bills or their mortgage late. And my mom would have to be the one going into the bank.
Right. That stays with you.
And then he was on the radio and then I because I feel like I've kind of grown with the last almost 30 years of his career because I remember seeing everything was so new.
You're like a product, you look at you and that's how mature his career is really, your mother was a casting director, I know. And she met George in a comedy club and she was the one who went up to him and
so she was trying to cast him.
Right. And sort of started his career.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll get into
we'll get into
more of what she did for him.
She still gets 30% if that says anything.
Good. I think it should be more. Anyway, he got the show. And so what happened was Sandra Bullock, which who the fuck, like that is such a random.
When people find that out, it's crazy because really Sandra, she wanted to make a sitcom about a Latin family back then in, 2000, she was already so ahead. And so she was trying to look for a father figure. And so she went and saw My Dad at the Ice House. And then she just saw his stand up and she just nixed everything. We're like, you are the show. You have this to write your life. And so it's his life because my dad really did work at an airplane parts factory and he became so it was his life if he didn't become a stand up.
Right.
And so
Which is, I mean, that's what I think the beauty of stand up is. Mm-hmm. You it's such a personal art form and you really do know I'm sure after you do a show, I do this, like people, or I've said this before on the show, but I don't know if you feel like this, but and your mother's right. After the show, get the fuck out of there. And I remember as a little girl, I heard that Barbra Streisand, didn't want to see the audience after the show. And I was like, oh, that's terrible. And, then you become a performer and you're like, oh, I totally get it. You've just given your whole, and then you have to be one-on-one with these people. But I love your mother for telling you to dress properly because it's so funny. I remember at Catch a Rising Star, which was this club I'm sure your dad remembers it and your mom remembers it. It was on First Avenue in Manhattan. And remember Adam Sandler, he must have been like 18, 19. And a few years older. And he gets on stage and he's really funny, but he's in sweatpants, like a dirty t-shirt, unshaven. And the guy who books stand up, the Catch a Rising Star, who now books Caroline's, he's like, he's going to be a star, Lewis. And I'm like, ew, he doesn't, like, how? Like, and I always got dressed up. Like last night, I went out to do a couple sets at the Cellar. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wear jeans and my P-Town sweatshirt. And then I was like, no, I'm not. Like, who do I think I am? It's my job, and I love that. Your mother,
exactly. In any marginalized group, it's like, white men could get away with that. And but other, like, we have to, you have to work for it, especially being a woman and
twice as hard.
Yeah, twice as hard. I mean, like, my friend, when Trump won, it's so funny because one of my best friends, Brookie, she's Jewish and I'm Latin. Yeah, exactly. Brooke and Ital. And so it's so funny because like she was just, there's a character her name is based on the show, but when he won, I was so depressed. And I was crying in bed for like 3 days. And she was just like, Mayan, are you worried that you're going to get deported? And I'm like, what?
No fucking way.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was just like, well, and I'm like, Brookie, you've met my parents. You've been to my house.
Okay, like, Brookie is not the smartest Jew in the world.
No. Okay. And then she was like, well, politics don't really affect me. I'm like, you're Jewish. We'd be on the same boat.
Oh my God. How about you should call her right now.
I was like, are you kidding me? We'd be on the same one out of here. And then that day because I had a joke that during that time, because I was just, what do I do? Like I lost my ID. And so I used to go into bars in Chicago and I just bring my passport and that would be my form of ID. I'm like, just to prove I'm legal,
Right.
But then after a second city, she's like, what should I get you for Christmas? And I'm like, do you want me to get you my birth certificate for Christmas? And she's like, oh, I'm never going to live this down, am I? I'm like, no, now I'm telling it on a podcast.
Oh my God. That's fucking Brookie. What is Brookie doing now?
Brookie, she actually books, like she's an event planner for, it is just for a Jewish charity in Chicago.
Oh God, Brookie, we need to talk. We need to have a conversation. So you're growing up on a like, I don't think people understand, like,
With
you're
sound
going to school,
stages,
yeah, you are growing up on a soundstage. I want to know. So I know that they called you like the kid AD and right. And you used to bring, who played the mom, the wife?
Oh, Constance Marie.
Constance Marie. Yeah. You'd bring her to makeup and you'd make quesadillas for everyone. So you have this life at Gamble Hall and sort of this great mother who really, I mean, I can't tell you how lucky you are that you had, I mean, you're very,
no, she was the glue that held whatever my nuclear family was together, truly.
Right. And understood the business. Like, that's the thing. You know, you
and
have
no one
these
taught
other,
her.
Right. She's just the greatest.
You know,
but
she
so
learned
you had
on
this
the
mother,
way.
right. And she knew all the characters. She knew all the bullshit, and she was protecting her daughter, but yet allowed you to spend time on the soundstage. What was it like? Because I remember the first time I ever got a part was on Roseanne. And
really?
I was 20, I don't know, I was about your age, maybe a year older. And I had been doing stand-up for a really long time, but it was my first time in LA, and I went out and I got this part. And I remember walking on the sound, and I was addicted to sitcoms when I was growing up. And I remember walking on the soundstage, and it was like, for me, watching it on TV, it was, you know, that's where I want to live. I want to go to their house. I want to, and you as a young child understanding, wait, this is not real. This is real. And seeing your parents behaving in both of those situations, I mean, that must have been
also just based on our life too, because you know, sometimes the writers would call my mom and ask them arguments that my parents had recently. And so there was one time where my Aunt George and Angie got into an argument, and it's almost verbatim a fight that my parents really had. And so my mom was just like, this is the weirdest thing ever. This is the weirdest thing ever. This is our life. And this is normal. This is our normal. And I think partly going around and realizing, you know, I think it was also to explain Daddy's job of why he wasn't there. Because my dad also, when he was working, he would wake up at 7 a.m. and go to bed at 7 p.m. Like, and I would, I would hardly see him when he was working. And so I think that was also a way for me to learn. And I fell in love with it. I absolutely fell in love with it. I would go around, and this is like, I would go and I had my own little ID, and I would go on the golf cart and go around Warner Brothers, and being able to see the magic and in the live audience. Like, I just fell in love with it. I used to sit, and I used to have little parts too. And yeah, I was kid AD. I used to earn like $20 a show. And I used to save up money to buy American Girl dolls. You know, that was like my little thing. But I but even working like that at a young age, I fell in love with the process of it. And it was, you know, I got to see what being a performer entailed from the beginning, the good, the bad.
But so the magic didn't ever, you know, you didn't become sort of
became
bitter
more
and
magical. It became more magical.
That's what
because I got to see how it worked. And then you get to see it watching, and that was just like, oh, cool. That's what they, you know, already seeing those types of things.
You're seeing how they edit and how the story develops.
But then, you know, when was growing up in LA and people are, I'm like, I get a little jaded, and I'm just like, no, that's not actually how it works. You know, I was
right.
Be the dream killer for people sometimes. I just be like, okay, I have to, like, you know, I can't peek behind the curtain. Don't let people peek behind the curtain. That's all right.
Was there ever a storyline when you were a kid that you were like, I don't want that on the show? Like, were there ever times when you were together as a family and it was like, I don't want that broadcast on the show? I had that with my kids. Like, you're not allowed to talk about me in your act. And I was like, oh, fuck.
I think that was more, I don't think that was necessarily for the show. I think during my parents' marriage and the stand-up, that was a problem. And I think after the divorce, that was more of the problem of my mom would have to, like, call lawyers and be like, no, like, stop.
We'll be getting to the divorce in part two.
We'll be getting to the divorce in part 2.
Oh, and it's juicy. yeah, so there was never a discussion like, you're at the dinner table, if that ever happened.
Mhm.
And you were like, saying, this happened to me at school, please don't put it on the.
Mhm.
Did the kids at school, like, what was it like? I mean, look, you're going to school in LA. A lot of the kids' parents are in show business, which
Yes, a lot
I
of them.
can't. Right. So you're not like here where it's like, oh my God. Well, no, it's not really in New York. It's
Yeah. Sometimes
but
I was small potatoes because I was like TV while other kids were, but also
oh,
the show became very popular. I saw it in elementary school. Like I was so young and I had a lot of trust issues from my parents, but also just people in fame in general. Like people would come up to me and ask for autographs or t-shirts. And, I'm a little kid, like wanting to be like make friends. And I'd be
loved.
like, sure.
Yeah.
And, I do that. And I didn't realize that people were taking advantage of me and my kindness or,
Right.
'cause my family, we were always like wanting to bring people up as well. And so I think and then the divorce I'll get to that
Yeah.
part too. That was awful at school. Awful. And even just things like with, my dad getting publicly getting like it was just
Yeah.
horrible.
I can't even imagine, and not having a sibling. I mean, I wonder what that was like. You are this product and the only product of this sort of contentious marriage. And
my parents don't like to hear it, but sometimes I sometimes think there's a reason because it was a lot. My mom could stay pregnant. She would just have miscarriages. And, I was kind of this miracle baby. I do wish sometimes I had someone to share it with because it became a lot.
But they look at you. You're just fucking greatest. So you go to school, you're part of the show, you're in this sort of, I can't eat. I mean, I hated high school so much and
I did too.
I can't imagine. And high school is like, people are like, what's showbiz like? I'm like, it's like high school. You're either fucking cool or you're not cool or you're this or you're, whatever. You're a burnout. You're weird. You're this. All right. And then to be in high school, in a world that is based around high school, I can't imagine. So you start going to therapy. Were you 11 when you started going to therapy?
Yeah, about 11. I've been in therapy, different types of therapy since I was about 2 years old. I mean, like speech therapy and things like, because I was a speech therapy kid and I was also a vision therapy kid. And like I've
really
free therapy throughout the math. I was like,
that's good. But you can trust them now. Yeah. So wait, so you had speech therapy.
I had speech therapy because I had trouble with like my THs, my R's, and just verbal processing. Like I didn't speak till I was about 2 years old. So we just did an episode of Lopez versus Lopez about me not speaking Spanish, but I didn't learn. And I've never learned. I still don't know how to speak Spanish because I couldn't learn English, and so they didn't want me to get confused.
Right.
And behavioral therapy. Well, I've been in cognitive behavioral therapy.
I love cognitive behavior. Oh my God,
that's like my realm. Cognitive behavioral
That's
therapy.
Me too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I usually ask the people what they do, my guests what they do for their mental health at the end of the podcast, but we don't have to.
I've done a lot. I've done a lot.
I know, but I have to say CBT therapy is like, I've been in therapy since I'm 18. But I mean, 11, just CBT therapy. It's like, it gives you this toolbox, right? Like that you are like, it helps you recognize, okay, I know what's going on in my brain. You know what I mean?
I'm painfully self-aware. I am painfully self-aware where I will sometimes just go to myself and people will be like, I'm like, no, I'm talking with myself. Like I'm having like,
right. I'm having,
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's really annoying, Mayan?
Mm-hmm.
My younger son, Ben, is studying psychology and fucking thinks he knows everything now. And my girlfriend, my partner, is a therapist, and I just want to fucking kill myself. I want to It's horrible. It's fucking horrible. Okay.
I'd be like, leave out there, not in here.
Get the right.
Yeah.
Leave me. I already hate myself. Okay. I don't need you validating it.
Like I can feel it in your breath. Like I can feel it on me. No.
You know, we're going to talk about your TikTok because that's really how the show came to be. But so I've seen so many photos of you with famous people as a little girl. Dakota Fanning, Samuel L. Jackson, Dick Van Dyke, Obama. Like, did you know, oh my God, these people are like, I am different. I am seeing this because of who my parents are.
Absolutely. I think, you know, before my mom would always go forward and explain. And I think there was actually one time that we didn't go to a movie premiere for about 2 years because there was one time that I said, oh, when is the limo coming? And my parents were like,
oh boy.
And I was like, me and my big mouth. But I was, you know, that was a lesson where it's like, no, this is a privilege, right? It's a perk. And that's where I got to see the good parts of having your parent as a celebrity, the bad parts. And these experiences that I've had and the stories that I have are some of like the greatest that I have. I even have some on my phone. Like I met Phyllis Diller when I was a little girl. And
oh God, I loved her. I met her. Yeah.
I have this picture.
Oh my God, look how cute you are. She was the best. Do you remember meeting her?
I do. And I remember just like kind of we went to her house for her birthday. My mom, my dad.
Did you know?
And I didn't really know her, but I could feel who she was. And I was like, oh, you know, you just felt that aura around her. And I was just talking to her and she was like, you're funny. She's like, I can see you. And now it's like one of the greatest.
And you remember that.
I remember it so clearly. Like her being like, you are a funny little thing. Like, I think you could be, you know, like your daddy. Like you know, you got it.
Wow.
You know. And she was
I love that you remember that.
Oh,
and
you know,
concert pianist and painter. Like she was so fucking talented.
And how about also Mayan Lopez being the great conductor of excellence that she is. I went to the Mary Poppins like 50-year premiere, and my mom went to Western Costumes and ordered me and rented me a Mary Poppins outfit. So I was a little brown Mary Poppins.
Oh my God, I love that.
So, and I went and I met Dick Van Dyke and look at his face. Like,
oh, he's just loving you.
Beaming at me.
Look how cute you are.
And then I met Julie Andrews and she just was
I fucking hate you.
Like looking
oh my God, look at their faces. Their faces are full of joy because you're so adorable.
It was just
what
the
was
best. And
what was it like having Justin Bieber sing to you? And how old were you?
I was 13, 14 years old.
I can't even.
Okay, I'm going to say this and people can fact check this and I will fully accept if I am wrong. But I think that was his first late night show appearance ever as a performer. And I'm the one that showed my dad Justin Bieber on YouTube and was like, this kid is going to be really popular. You should get him on your show. And I think he was the first one. So if there was, or even in just the beginning, I as a fan helped some way, like getting him on his way. And that was like because he didn't know. And I was sitting in like further in the row. And the second my mom saw him coming up, she shoved me to the edge. And you can see it when you watch the clip.
Oh, that's so funny.
I am running. And so he comes up and then he just puts his arm around me and he just looks at me and I just freaked
I think I would have.
I died. And then I went backstage and he looks at me and he just goes, you. And I'm like, yeah, me. And he was like, wait, how did you? I was like, I'm George's daughter. He was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And, you know, there were other events that I had seen.
This was his talk show, right?
Your dad's talk show. Lopez Tonight.
Do you too bad you didn't say, yeah, I'm the reason you're here, bitch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And my mom has another story, too, that very quickly, like my mom had Justin Bieber that was when he was kind of wild. And so he had there was a putting green in the back like part of the green room, there's like a putting green. And so they held all these like picks or whatever that you put the golf thing on. Very clever. My dad's a golfer, whatever.
Yeah.
And clearly I care. And I put it out, and he was throwing them around everywhere. And my mom goes, "Pick it up."
To Justin Bieber?
And she goes, "What?" She goes, "Pick it up. Pick all of this up." And then
was he scared? I love it. Go Ann. Go Ann. Woo!
She was like, "Pick it up now. This is disrespectful." Wow. I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Why I love your mother.
She's great. She's like, she doesn't care. She didn't care.
That's the greatest. Okay. So do you ask to go to therapy at 11, or this is your first time with like talk therapy about your feelings and stuff? Did you ask?
I think God, I don't even know if I can remember because it's been so long. I think I was just very confused, and there was a lot of things happening with my family at that time, other family members. And I think my mom just wanted to help me make sure. And also I had trouble like speaking, but I think it was just having another person to talk to.
That wasn't,
that wasn't my mom. And I had a very difficult relationship with therapy sometimes, because there was times where I would have therapy and then my mom would go into the fit with the therapist afterwards and then try to see what I said. And so she was like, "Well, for safety." And I'm like, "No, I need to have a safe." So I would go to therapy, but I wouldn't be completely honest in therapy. And so that was kind of where it started to build up, because, I would try to journal, and she would read my journals. And so I was just, she's changed a lot, but there were,
you do need those boundaries.
Yeah. I didn't have, I was an extension of her. And it was, sometimes I feel like my mom was too good of a mom.
Right.
Sometimes like she actually had to tell my dad to hug me at times.
Oh.
And, that was another thing where, I would have to tell my dad, and then he would push me away.
Right.
And then he'd be like, "Hey, love bug, like get off me." And then, but he didn't know how to.
Right. Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of Kill Me Now with Mayan Lopez. Kill Me Now is produced by Laura Vogel. It's edited by Colin Schmaling. This podcast and my life would not be possible without the help of Brittany Jo Sowards Richmond. That's right. If you like the show, please, if you haven't subscribed and sent a review, like seriously, what is wrong with you? That is what I need. I need people to do that, because I need to keep doing the podcast, which I can't do if people don't tell other people about it. You know what I'm saying? Because the advertisers, it's all about downloads. It's all about listeners. So yeah, I just want you to love me and support me. Now, what I have to do is I'm now looking up on my phone some of the people who listen to the end. If you listen to the end, I'm telling you right now, I do have a listener to the end. So I was doing the show in Scarsdale, New York, and I get off stage. It's the tiniest room in the world. And I get off stage, and as I'm walking off stage, this woman says to me, who's sitting in the audience, "I listen to the end." And I remember her name. Her name was Claudia, or is Claudia. And then she sent me a message on one of these. First of all, I fucking hate Twitter, by the way. It's like Elon Musk is the worst. The worst. Okay. Anyway, so she sent me a message, but I don't know if it was on Twitter or Instagram or... Okay, I don't know what it was on, but it was on something, and yeah. All right, well, her name's Claudia, and I don't know her last name, but thank you, Claudia, for listening to the end. I love everyone who listens to the end. What else do I have to tell you? Really, that's it. I don't, please come to my shows in Florida. Please come up. If you're in New York City, Stand Up New York, December 25th. I'm doing 2 shows at 4 and 7. Get your asses there. There's a Chinese restaurant literally across the street. like literally across the street. You can get all, and there's a movie theater a few blocks away. You could go see a comedy show, go to a movie, and get Chinese food, which is the most Jewish thing you could do on Christmas Day, okay? So there you go. And that's it. I love you all so much for listening. Enjoy the weeks up until the holiday, which are usually shit, full of parties and shit, and I can't believe how fast this year went by. Can you believe how fucking fast this year went by? Okay, well, I'm gonna go take a nap, because actually I'm gonna go night-night. I'm gonna go night-night, because it's very late, and I love you. So thank you all again so much for listening, and as we always say, so long!